in, I recommend having something to write with and something to write on. But I am showing noon on the dot, so we will go ahead and kick things off. Again, hello, everybody, and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us here, the American Family Insurance DreamBank, where we believe in the transformative power of dreams. My name is Andy Frisky. I'm a senior dream curator at DreamBank. And on behalf of our team, thank you so much for joining us today. As we get started, we always like to learn from where people are joining us. So if you're comfortable, please go ahead and share so in the comments. But for those of you who maybe aren't familiar with DreamBank, would love to take a few moments and share with you a little bit about that. So here at American Family Insurance, we believe that communities are stronger and future is brighter when people are actively pursuing their dreams. And that's why DreamBank was created. It's an inspirational community destination and digital experience that is dedicated to dreamers everywhere. Our offerings are designed to help you celebrate the dream journey, overcome obstacles, and stay motivated. This event today happens to fall under our business series. We have 9 distinct event series, though, amongst a few other special events. I will go ahead and put some links in the chat here in a little bit, just so that you folks have a good reference point. But I would like to go ahead and introduce our featured speaker today, Brent Halfwassen. So Brent has coached over 500 entrepreneurs one-on-one during his career. He's focusing on micro and small business owners, along with emerging entrepreneurs. He focuses on empowering entrepreneurs to find the money, means, and mindset to unleash their business. He's an advocate for entrepreneurs with both Main Street and lifestyle businesses. He also leads a successful pitch preparation program, helping entrepreneurs hone their story and presentations when preparing to raise money, equity or debt, for the first time. Without further ado, though, I'm going to go ahead and kick it over to Brent. Brent, take it away.
Hey, Andy, really appreciate the introduction, and thanks for the opportunity to be here. Again, I'm Brent Halfwassen. I'm a Milwaukee small business coach. I would love to hear what everyone else is doing and where we're coming from, and we're going to do a lot in the chat today. So I want to go ahead and encourage you, throw your name, throw your email in there, any way you want people to connect with you. One hint, whenever you do something virtual, take advantage of that chat function. It's the way that you can connect with people the way you would if you were live, but you're going to get that opportunity. So I've already put my information in there. If you want to share about your business, where you're going, how you're doing, that'd be amazing. But without further ado, I want to respect everyone's time. So let's go ahead and start digging in here. We are going to talk about the entrepreneurial mindset for success. There are 8 concepts that we're going to cover over 2 weeks. So we're going to cover the first 4 today on the core concepts, and then we're going to get to the more advanced ones next week. We invite you to be able to hit them both. So these are based on this amazing book, Who Owns the Ice House? 8 Life Lessons from an Unlikely Entrepreneur. Definitely check that out if you're interested in learning more. Andy already talked a little bit about me. Ultimately, I want to help small business owners master the link between what you do and the results you want to achieve. It's that simple. I focus heavily on the finance and operations so that you can operate simply and easily how you go along. You know, we work with owners, entrepreneurs, founders, and decision makers who are struggling with profitability and keeping their cash. Launched, but you found reality just doesn't match your plan. You got financial and operational roadblocks to your success, and finally you have difficulty telling your story and maximizing its impact. These are things that hit a lot of entrepreneurs as we go along, and so if I can help you in any way, do please feel free to reach out. Here's the 8 life lessons we're going to cover. Again, we're only going to cover the first 4 of these today, the next 4 on the back end, but I wanted you to get a preview of what they look like and kind of where we're going to go. And they form a foundation. I'm glad you're tuning in today because the foundation is so important. We're going to cover 1 through 4. And you notice that 2 through 4 is actually a feedback loop. It's something that we need to be doing all the time as entrepreneurs. And that's why it's so essential that we're adjusting our mindset. So as we go through today, we're going to pause a little bit after each one of these topics. And I encourage you, if you have questions, you have comments, anything stuck out to you that was like, wow, that's amazing, do drop that in the chat. Drop 1 word, drop a phrase, drop your question, and we'll pause each time, and Andy will help me pick out a question or 2 that we can answer each time as we go along. And we're going to try and save a little bit of time on the back end for some Q&A. Before we get started, let's go with this quote from Andy Stanley. Direction, not intention, is going to determine our destination. And also discipline, not desire, drives outcome. So we need to both focus the direction that we're heading and the discipline to be able to get it done. So this is a program of action, and when we're done, you'll see I've got a special offer for everyone to get a hold of a workbook to be able to take this even deeper. Item 1, the power of choice. This is the most important and fundamental bedrock issue to becoming an entrepreneur. In fact, when you decided to become an entrepreneur, you chose to become an entrepreneur. That ability to choose is fundamental to our entrepreneurial mindset and empowers participants to create the life we imagine. We could only build the life if we first imagined it and envisioned it first. So what goes in with that? We can choose the influences that surround us. We all know that there are people who, when you said, hey, I'm going to go start my own business, they always said, why don't you go get a real job? If I had $1 for every entrepreneur I encountered who had someone tell them to go find a real job, I probably wouldn't even need to be coaching, except that I love it. Okay, so you get to choose who you hang out with. You get to choose to be able to get with, coming to the DreamBank was a choice you made. You chose to get around people that you can influence. Find some people who are connecting here on the chat and go ahead and get connected with them. But you get to choose how you're influenced. If you're influenced by people who are always talking down the idea, not supporting you and not understanding where you're going, make the choice to change that influence. Next topic is reacting versus responding. This is a really big one in terms of the mindset. We oftentimes are entrenched in our own way of thinking, our own ideas, and our own processes. And when we do that, as soon as someone says something to us, as soon as a situation occurs to us, we immediately react without thinking. It's that ready, fire, aim type mode. And when we do that, oftentimes we kind of wish we would have taken that back. So you may have heard actions speak louder than words. I've heard recently that reactions speak louder than both. How we react says a lot about where we're at with our mindset. We want to take the time to focus on responding, being thoughtful. Let me tell you, in my experience, the number one way this comes up for entrepreneurs is something I call the tyranny of the urgent. It's that email that comes in and you were planning to put a workshop together or get a client proposal out, and all of a sudden, oh, but I got to respond to this, and now my social media, I need to do that, and I need to make sure to get out there and hit that networking thing. It becomes a reaction process. We have the option to choose to take control of our schedule, to take control of when and how we respond, to take control, and all these are become in the response category. So when we can get out of the mode of reacting, we can be a whole lot more successful when we move into the world of response, because then we get to drive the things that we control. Next piece I want to touch on that relates to this is a concept called locus of control. I've talked a little bit about choosing things that we control. We all know, and if there's anything living through the pandemic has taught us, control is something that can be taken away a lot. And so I want to encourage you that there's an external locus of control, which says everything that goes on in the world drives what I get to do. You get told whether you get to stay home or not. Sometimes you get told whether you have to wear a mask or not, maybe whether you have to get a shot or not. That's an external locus of control. There are lots of things that go on in this world I don't get to decide on. Even if I frankly go and vote, I still, I'm one out of many, and the outcome is what it is, and I don't get to control that. What we want to do is shift our mindset, instead of worrying about all the things that I cannot control, to move to the things that I can. I'll just give you an example. I was aware that the DreamBank was out there for a long time. I had to choose to get the perspective of, I'm going to reach out to Andy and see if he's interested in some of the material that I have to be able to put on there and see if I can benefit some of the other entrepreneurs out there. We need to shift our mindset from the world is going on and I'm not sure what I'm going to do about it. Because by the way, if you don't take action, the world ultimately takes action for you. Action always happens. Progress always goes on. The question is whether are we choosing to walk with our own 2 feet or kind of swept along with the waves, and shift that locus of control to, well, what is in my power? I'll tell you, there are a lot of entrepreneurs who became highly successful during the pandemic because they said there's a lot of pieces that are out of my control, but those that are within it, there's a big need out there. There's a lot of opportunity to be able to choose. And then I want to wrap up this particular topic on the power to choose to talk about vision. I started off by saying we can only live the life if we've envisioned it first. That is so true. And you get to set your own vision statement. What do you want your business to be like? Not everyone wants to grow and decide that they want to become a public offering and run a public business or even go down the venture capital route. A lot of folks are happy. They just want to build a comfortable life for themselves. They want to be able to have time with their kids and their family that they haven't had before. They want to have the income to be able to maybe travel the way they want to. They want to make an impact in their community and leave the world a better place. That vision is up to you. Someone else doesn't have to tell you how business needs to be, what it means to be successful. It's one of the challenges that I get a lot of times when people are like, well, when are you going to grow? How are you going to scale? I'm like, who said I wanted to grow or scale? Maybe those aren't your key items. So I want you to focus on, you get to decide what your vision is, what your passion is, and ultimately your purpose, why you were put here on this earth, and decide, do you want to fulfill that, or do you want to follow someone else's perspective? I'd like to pause here and just take a moment. If anyone wants to share some questions or comments or observations, go ahead and drop them in the chat and we can pull them up. And while we're doing that, and while maybe people are typing, I want to encourage everyone, continue, if you haven't had a chance to kind of check in, drop your name, drop your business, what you do, and feel free to drop a website or some way to connect you. I think it's going to, again, if you can come out of this, and one of the goals, in addition to hopefully I can help you with the mindset, but perhaps you can make a connection and maybe be a service provider or someone that could be a customer, that would be amazing.
Brent, there was a question that came in here from Casey. Do you have advice on making a vision statement?
Yeah, I've actually got it. That we'll give you the preview to the end. I've got a link to some material. I put together a pretty good workbook to be able to deal with some of this. And one of the points to ponder is talking about the vision statement. But to me, I say start out with get dreamy. Decide what really gets you excited. Don't worry about, everyone's like, well, when it's done, the vision statement needs to be concise and say, I envision that every business in Milwaukee is able to be thriving and successful because they get access to the coaching resources they need. I didn't start out with that. I started out with like, what are the outcomes I want to see happen in the world? What do I want to happen in my world? So do a lot of brainstorming and then narrow it in and focus it in. And don't let the idea of reality get in your way. And don't get me wrong, I believe entrepreneurship has a lot where your purpose meets hustle, and it has to be hit with a dose of reality. But in your vision statement is where things are in an ideal state. But do download the material when you get the opportunity. I'll drop those links at the end and take a look. There's a good guide about how to start digging into your own personal mission statement. And I think you might want to have two. You might have a personal mission statement. I'm guessing a lot of people on this call are solopreneurs or going into business by yourself. And there's a strong mix between who you are personally and the business that you're running. Hopefully that gives some insight into the question. Cool. Let's dig on to the next one, and we're going to try and save a few minutes at the end still to be able to go ahead and take some questions. So the next one is recognizing opportunity. So now that we've decided that we have the power to make some choices, we're going to get into that part of that flow chart that we talked about earlier. So when we're recognizing opportunity, an entrepreneurial mindset sees problems as a potential for opportunities. Recognizing the problem solving for others is the key to small business success. I would put out there that I believe that entrepreneurs are someone who want to solve a problem for other people to make their life better. That's how I'm going to define entrepreneurs. Others may say someone who wants to go make great gobs of money, people who want to go out and change the world. But ultimately, I think when we get into a mindset that says, problems are actually the opportunities. I see a problem. I believe I can fix it. I believe I can help it. I believe I have something that's amazing that can really address that in a way that's meaningful and make others' lives better. That's I think when we're talking about passion, that's the passion that we're out there applying. And sometimes it's your purpose. You feel like everything that you've been trained to do, your job experience, your life experience has led you to this one moment where you said, I can't believe that no one has figured out how to do X. Or, wow, every time I come in here, I keep thinking of 5 ways that this thing's going to be a lot better. That's you identifying opportunities and already brainstorming on where the next issue is. So let's dig in a little bit. The first thing we have to be ready to do when we're searching for opportunities is to, again, shift that mindset to not accept the world as good enough today, but we're going to start looking at how are other people struggling. One thing I'll point to, it's one of my favorite issues that comes up quite a bit. It's paper straws, right? The first opportunity someone saw was no one likes seeing these plastic straws floating around everywhere, creating to a lot of plastic waste. Let's create paper straws. If anyone's had a paper straw and you drink for more than about 10 minutes, you discover that you don't have a paper straw very long, you've got wet, soggy paper. So when you're starting to look at the world in terms of problems, you say, I wonder how many of these papers, how many organizations would love to have an ecological solution that doesn't get soggy when put into a liquid? Because straws are generally meant to be put into liquid. That's just, you stumbled on a problem. Now, some people just walk out and they're like, man, I wish someone would come up with a better straw. Others say, I actually have some experience with manufacturing or paper industry or recycling, and maybe I have the opportunity to pull some people together. So we need to shift our thought process to be out there constantly in search of opportunities. One challenge I think a lot of entrepreneurs have is they say, I am great at baking cupcakes. I can make 12 of the best cupcakes in the world. I'm going to go open a bakery. My challenge to that is that I would say, that's what you're great at, but I'm not sure there's a problem out there. Do we need more cupcakes? Do we need more bakeries? Can you figure out how to make 1,000 cupcakes every day when your baker calls at 4 a.m. and says, sorry, I'm not coming in today. I just got a better job somewhere else. Those are different challenges that come up instead of looking at an opportunity and saying, I'm at this corporate event or I'm at this birthday party, and I notice that every time the kids do X or the people do Y, why doesn't someone just do blank? Blank becomes your opportunity to seize it. And I would bet that in your area of expertise, your sphere of knowledge, the places where you care about, that you're passionate about, that you're purposeful about, that those show up. Problems are opportunities. I just want to keep reiterating that. It may seem like I've got to get a great widget and then figure out how someone uses it. Turn that around. I love someone said thinking innovatively. What is wrong with the world? I wonder why. Just stick with that I wonder why question. Every time you ask I wonder why, I believe there's an opportunity there for someone to be successful. They may not be you. They may be someone else, but eventually those pieces will start to percolate down for you if you're looking that way. And whether you're already in business or thinking about getting in business, these are ways that you iterate your products, create new product lines, create new opportunities to be able to solve someone else's problem. And ideally, we'll figure out how to monetize that problem later. But you want to first figure out, you have to focus first on solving the problem. And if your passion and purpose are tied with the problem solving, the money will come and we can figure out how to monetize it. Next, I want to say, look at simple solutions. So many people, when they come up with a complexity, I once worked with an entrepreneur that was convinced that the problem with America's appliances that you can buy in the store today is we need to go back to how we made them in the 80s and 90s, which was a lot of heavy steel, mostly made here in the US, and ultimately with a lot of technology that was obsolete because he was a repair technician. And from his standpoint, reliability was the number one thing he looked at. So there were parts that were twice as expensive, but they lasted forever. And his solution was, I'm going to build a new appliance plant. Now, that is obviously way beyond his capabilities. I had the privilege of working for a Fortune 500 company that had a division that did appliances. And I happen to know the number of millions of dollars that go into even making that start to work. Focus on simple solutions. The analog to that is sometimes when people want to build an app, they build out a giant, horribly complex app. Focus on being simple. If you're familiar with the concept of minimum viable product, this is what we're talking about. Strip it down until the very basic solution addresses the very basic problem. You can always build up and grow from there. But when we go with complex solutions to these opportunities, we oftentimes talk ourselves out of doing it. However, if we see that there's an opportunity to keep it simple, and then we can also just get started quickly. That moves us on to opportunistic adaptation. What this means is we're going to go out, we're going to test it, we're going to see if it works, we're going to get feedback, we're going to modify it, and we're going to try again. When you start small, when I started doing workshops, I would start with smaller sessions. Go out, test them out, get feedback from people. What do I need to change? Do you want more interaction? Should we be throwing more stuff in the chat? Should we be pausing to let people speak or not speak? If you've built it all out and you have the 15-page plan on how it's going to go, then you miss out on the opportunity to adapt, evolve, and ultimately get amazing with what your product is. So that cycle of continuous learning, of continually asking, of continually knowing that we're actually in experimentation. I have never arrived. My coaching hopefully continues to adapt and get better. My workshops continue to adapt and get better because I'm always ready to say, this isn't it, this is just generation one, right? The iPhone 13 is much, much more advanced than the iPhone 1, not just because time has gone on, but because they've learned, they've understood there are new opportunities. And then frankly, people created new opportunities from that. Last thing I want to hit on as we're looking at this topic is prior work experience. Your work experience doesn't define who you are, but a lot of times it can provide amazing opportunities to be able to propel yourself forward as we look at this particular mindset opportunity. So, and oftentimes you can shift, not necessarily saying, I used to repair cars at another shop, therefore I should go open an auto shop and repair cars, but it gives you the framework and the background to have knowledge. If I'm going to start selling medical supplies into a hospital or into any type of medical setting, it might help if I've had some level of medical experience. Maybe it's because I worked at a medical distribution company. Maybe it's because I was a nurse in a hospital. I'm not sure what it is, but those experiences allow you to understand and ultimately connect and make relationships with people in that buying environment where you have some common bonds and common experiences. So these are 5 pieces I would really love people to think about as they move forward. Open to any questions at this point that come to mind. Just going to look through here. Love what people are checking in, by the way, talking about your businesses. There's some inspiring things here. Raising awareness about disability through kids' books I write. I mean, these are the type of projects that are amazing and they're powerful and they ultimately end up changing the world. All right, we can we'll just keep going through the presentation. Do drop questions in, do drop ideas that come to mind. Now that we've recognized opportunity, we understand the power to choice. Oh, just saw something drop in there. Thanks, no problem. Ideas into action, right? And entrepreneurial mindset is action-oriented. We just talked about this, testing ideas in the real world before making large scale investments of time, effort, and money. Here's one of the challenges, and we're going to talk about getting access to money in a second. The primary thing I want everyone to know about getting money, particularly early as a business owner, but probably ever as a business owner, money makes you stupid. I run into so many entrepreneurs who had a big pile of money because they then felt like this is the pile they had to spend, and they usually spent it. And oftentimes they show up with about 6 weeks of cash flow left and say, Brent, I'd love to talk to you about coaching. I say, great, let's talk about it. And they say, well, I started out with this pile of money and now I made all these choices and here's where I'm at and I'm going to run out of money in 6 weeks. What do I do? If you can change your mindset to say, what can we do with minimal money, with minimum time and minimum effort? That doesn't mean that it's poor and it's crummy, but we're going back to that previous concept of, I want to do opportunistic adaptation. I want to be able to do this quickly. I've got my friend Susie Moon. I saw her log into the call here. You know, she's looking at launching a new endeavor and a new opportunity. She could write out a giant script and a huge opportunity and figure out how her roadmap's going to be to go conquer the world with this particular idea. Or she could start at one place with one test, with one pilot, with one beta version, and then come back, refine it, and not have made the giant investment. I see this with websites. I see this with prototypes. I see this with people ordering inventory. We have to take the time to be able to do that action-oriented market testing. And absolutely, you have to start somewhere. Thanks, Susie. And get started and get going. Don't make it perfect. Here's a bunch of things that get in the way when we start talking about mindset as it relates to putting our ideas into action. Classic barriers to entry. I need permits, right? If I'm gonna start a restaurant, I got to get a health inspection. I've got to get access to a commercial kitchen. I've got to find some wait staff. I got to find some people who understand the service industry. I've got to get connected with food distributors. There are some hurdles to go through. Every business has some level of barrier to entry. Some are radically more than others. If I want to get government contracts, I've got a much bigger challenge than if I'm going to open up the lemonade stand by going to buy some lemonade water and sugar and setting something up in the front of my house. Okay, there are oftentimes barriers to entry. The good part about barriers to entry is if you figure out how to get past them, everyone else is looking at them and say, oh, I can't do that. I don't know how to get that permit. I don't know anything about serving healthy food. Wow, getting the health department to actually show up is going to be a nuisance. When you have passed those hurdles, it actually becomes an asset to you rather than a liability. And so I want to encourage you, don't talk yourself out of where you're at when it comes to barriers to entry, but keep moving forward. Second one, we already talked about a little bit, the lack of money. I think this is a huge opportunity because I think it makes us work with what we have. I had an entrepreneur came in one time. He said, I'm looking to start this business. Here's my budget. However, here's how much money I had. And I said, well, this is going to be an easy fix, because what we're going to do is we're going to take your budget and we're going to shrink it until we match the amount of money you have. Because when we don't have a lot of money, we start thinking more scrappy. We start thinking about, can I trade services with someone else? Is there an opportunity to maybe do this free? Maybe there are services that otherwise I might pay for. I'm thinking of some of those subscription services. I'm not going to name any of them, but perhaps there's an opportunity to do that. Perhaps there's stuff I do personally that I can choose to trim back on in order to make that work. We're going to talk about that in bootstrapping. But the lack of money can oftentimes challenge us to do things smarter and more precise and in a more iterative way than if we have a lot of money. All of a sudden, the website's a $10,000 website versus I'm going to struggle through and figure out how to put together the one-page website based on, maybe a class I took at a local community college or just an online web builder. There are opportunities for us to be able to get good so that when we know now it's time to outsource, we know that we're trading effectively time for money. Talked about bootstrapping. Bootstrapping is bringing all your skills to bear. When I first started my first business, it was mowing lawns. What I brought to the table, I didn't go out and ask for a whole bunch of money. Got a push mower, got a pair of shoes and some headphones. And let's go out and start mowing lawns. So work with what you have. If you have, if ultimately you want to be able to get to the high-end 4K camera and what you have is not quite there yet, figure out how to work with what you have. A lot of times we can get by in our area of expertise. 80% of our area of expertise usually exceeds almost everyone's expectations. So there are ways we can, people did it as soon as we went into the pandemic. Almost everyone started working from home. That was ultimately everyone bootstrapping. We found a place. If you could go virtual, you found a place to work from home. You found out how to use your device or your phone. You found out how to use the free, we're on Zoom today. You found out how to use the free Zoom session. These are ways that we can bootstrap our business into service. Now, there are places where you may need to invest, but even on inventory, there are ways you can maybe get a customer to buy first. If I'm going to start a printing shop, screen printing shop for shirts, instead of billing the customer on the back end, perhaps I take enough money down to cover all my expenses and then bill the rest on the end. Or even better, I could bill them up front, and when that full payment is made, then I'm going to deliver the shirts in 3 days because I've figured out my supply chain to be able to go that fast. There are customer funding is a big one. Another one is vendor funding, where some of the vendors that you need to pay are giving you terms to pay 10 days, 30 days, 15 days, and you're giving your customers 7 days. So you're fixing the cycle where you get paid before you have to pay your vendor. There are ways to make this happen that end up allowing you to get started faster and be able to grow faster to the point that your business is generating the type of money that you need. Proof of concept is we talked about this a little bit before. It's really understanding what is good enough in order to get it to go, and what is the angle that I need in order to be successful. With a proof of concept, we can continue to iterate. We can continue to talk to customers. You'll see in the handout, in the workbook that I have at the end here, we're going to want to engage with our customers early and often. If we don't have customers yet, then it's going to be potential customers. It's that customer discovery process you may have talked about. That proof of concept is going to continue to evolve. It doesn't have to be perfect. It has to be good enough. Never let perfect be the enemy of good enough. Perfect keeps us from taking action. It keeps us from moving forward, and it keeps us from finding out if we can be successful. So I want you to ditch the idea of perfection. I don't care what book you read, and focus on good enough. Again, your 80% in your area of expertise is usually way beyond what anyone expects. Next topic, lack of time. Who has enough time as an entrepreneur? Raise your hand if you have enough time as an entrepreneur. You're doing fine. Basically, none of us seem to have enough time. However, this is where I go. We talked in the beginning about it's about the discipline, not desire, gets us to our outcome. We need to have the discipline to find the time that we have to be able to get there. Shiny object syndrome. Love it, Susie. And a lot of us are natural perfectionists, by the way. I'm reading here in the chat. So when we look at the lack of time, what we have to do is decide how much time am I going to choose to do that, block it off, and make it sacred somehow. Maybe I'm not watching shows that I used to. Maybe I decide to wake up earlier and reorganize the way I do my day. Maybe I reorganize the time that I spend so that I crunch everything into times that are maybe a little more inefficient so that I free up chunks of time to go. There are lots of ways to start a business where it's basically a hobby. Some people will call it a side hustle, whatever phrase you have for it. As you get it started, when you first start getting customers, find those little chunks of time and make the choice to spend the time there, okay? Lack of experience. A lot of us tell us, well, I've never done this before. I'm not good enough. I don't think I can have it. It's the imposter syndrome. It's those type of items. That's just nonsense, okay? Dive in. If it's your purpose, it's your passion. We're going to talk a little bit about knowledge on the next topic. You can dive in there. You do not have to be good enough. You do not have to be a master. There are ways that you continue to get better. We're going to talk about that in the next topic. Lack of experience, that imposter syndrome, that what if people find out that I don't know everything that I think I know? If you're talking in your modality and your expertise in your area where you're strong, your area where you're passionate, the area where you believe there's a solution, here's a little hint. Most people aren't actually as good and as smart and as capable as you think they are. That is a perception that comes out that usually is reinforced by confidence and someone saying, look, I'm willing to stay in my lane and do the things that I'm good at. You will get more experience by going out there and having experience, but don't let lack of experience. I've never baked cupcakes for 100 people before. All right, go out and get it done once. Find out how it's like. Find a job maybe that just does 50. There are some ways we can learn and ways we can grow, but lack of experience is usually covering this next one we want to talk about. That's fear. Fear is the number one reason that entrepreneurs don't start, they don't continue, they don't ask for the sale, they don't choose to invest in themselves. It may be fear of failure. It could be fear of success. It could be fear of hiring someone and managing someone. There's a lot of places that fear gets in. This is a great place to engage with a coach, to engage with camaraderie, to engage with other entrepreneurs. You're not alone. Chronic uniqueness is the number one challenge that comes up with so many entrepreneurs right after fear. I believe that I'm alone. No one else is experiencing this. No one else is understanding that. That's why I've been emphasizing on this call. If you can find a way to connect with people here, connect with people in your local area, connect with groups online, you're going to have an opportunity to share that your experiences are not, they're not unique. Other people have them, but fear is the number one barrier. And we have to make the choice, even with the presence of fear, to move forward. That's what courage looks like. But don't let fear hold you down, because it will always be there. It will always nag at you, but it is always making a mountain out of a molehill. Finally, I want to talk about reinventing work. We are changing our mindset from work is something I go and do in order to produce a widget, in order to get a paycheck, to the entrepreneurial mindset is that I am doing work so that I can solve problems, so that I can make someone's life better. And those people are going to be willing to pay for their life being better. That's the perspective. I want to go out and solve problems, not just go out and do a thing. For those people who want to do the thing, there are a lot of businesses that struggle when it's like, but I don't want to do this and I don't want to do that. What is your goal? If your goal is to solve the problem, all the other pieces of marketing and finding customers and understanding my inventory and supply chain and getting a good accountant and finding a coach to be able to support my business, those pieces come in because my goal is to solve the problem. If my goal is to do the thing, that might be still more of an employee mindset. And there's nothing, I just want to be very, very clear. There's nothing wrong with people who just say, look, I just want to keep doing my thing. I'm a graphic artist. I want to continue to crush graphic art. I don't want to go solicit people and sell them and get them to buy my services. That's amazing. It's actually important that you know that early before you invest a lot of time there. There was a whole ton of items there, and I want to make sure that we get time. Andy, I don't know if you saw some things that you want to either comment, you want to highlight in the chat, or questions that were out there.
There's just some great praise that are coming in from people, as well as just them kind of identifying with what you had to say. You know, this last one from Tasha, these great reminders of what I already know. It's the reassurance I need to push past having people join me in this journey. I may have to do this alone. So yeah, just I'm glad people are able to connect with Brent and the content that's happening here today.
Excellent. Keep the chats coming. I see it's been picking up pace, so just keep flowing. All right. Last topic we want to cover today is the pursuit of knowledge, right? So the entrepreneurial mindset ignites curiosity and encourages the self-directed pursuit of knowledge through formal and informal methods. The pursuit of knowledge, learning more, getting more experience, understanding more, That's essential to what we do as entrepreneurs. But whenever anyone started their first business, they were not an expert. I don't care if they went to business school. We can have discussions about the value of going to business school. I ultimately went to a business school as an undergrad. When I got my first job, they said, that's cool. Check the box. You have a diploma. Now you're going to go into a 2-year training program where we're actually going to teach you what you need to know to do this job. So there are different ways that you're going to acquire knowledge. But the key, I want to point out here, the mindset is about igniting curiosity. How does that work? How does that go? Tasha just wrote a whole letter on the interest and curiosity. So if there's a link to that or something, feel free to drop it in there. We can go check out what that looks like. Okay. The power of knowledge. We have to integrate knowledge with action. One of the biggest challenges we have for the learners are, you're going to go to the DreamBank and watch a lot of classes, and then you're going to go online and watch a lot of videos on the topic, and then you're going to go into search engine and find a lot of great articles on the topic, and then social media is going to have a lot of things on that topic. Knowledge has to be matched with action. We want to learn for a purpose, and we want to have a plan to put it into action. When you have just one or the other, action without knowledge, that's when you start creating random acts of marketing and just spinning your wheels and creating a lot of busy and churn. I don't want that to happen. But knowledge without action, we see that a lot, where someone is so capable and we're just like, oh my goodness, you should go out and go into business because what you know is no one else knows as much about that brand of cars as you do. How come you're not out there putting that into use? Maybe it's inertia, maybe it's laziness, maybe it's fear. There's a whole, don't just assume one item and be like, oh, they're lazy, I don't want to go out and get stuff done. There's a lot that keeps us from taking action. But I want you to join the entrepreneurial mindset. Is the power of knowledge is when it's married with action. When it's separated, it's cool, it's interesting, but we want to do something. So I want to challenge you, whenever you go out and decide you're going to learn something, I'm going to go take a class, I'm going to watch a video, I'm going to read an article, take one action based on that. What's the one thing, and only one? Because if you try to do 4, 5, 6, 7, you won't do any of it. So just pick one. What is the one thing I'm going to do as a result of this learning that I'm going to make better, right? Learning defined, we're going to talk about, there are formal and informal methods of learning. Formal is going to school. It's attending a seminar like you're doing right now. It's enrolling in a class. It's taking a program. Those are all valid ways to learn. We're also going to talk about informal learning in the end, because there's some powerful ways as entrepreneurs that we can really break through as a result of that. The aha moment is that time when you figure out that your curiosity is actually your secret sauce. How do I make this better? Wow, I just saw that. How can I integrate that into my business? That was amazing what they did. Is that something that I can use? I love the way they approached that customer and cared for their concerns. Can I make my own customer service better? That aha moment just has an unfettered curiosity of like, how did you build that? How did you do it? How did you grow? That's ultimately why I became a business coach, because I love, love, love seeing people create and build things successfully. It can be a house, it can be pottery, and I choose to focus it on businesses, but it's not limited to that. I just love seeing things grow, build, and be successful. And then to be a part of that and support that is the place where I get amazing joy and a privilege to be a part of. For you, I want to figure out, what is your aha moment? What is your powerful curiosity? Okay. Planning for success. I'm going to say this. I'm not a big fan of planning. And I'm not a big fan of planning because the same reason I'm not a big fan of acquiring a ton of knowledge. We oftentimes get stuck in planning. So when you do planning, I want it to be short, concise, and focused. I don't want you to plan for the rest of the universe. And here's my 5-year plan. When I got my first job, I probably had 65-year plans in the 5 years I worked there, because I find new opportunities. I find new things. I was naturally curious. I kept pursuing items. But you do have to plan for success. If you don't plan for success, then you're planning, then you're not ultimately going to succeed. But I want you to keep that plan simple, and I want you to keep it concise, because it's got to change. It's going to be subject to those opportunistic adaptations. You're going to have to make it effective. Okay. One word of caution, and that is really that we have to remember that the goal here on our knowledge is that we have to be focusing on the customer facing. We haven't talked a lot about customer facing yet, but when we're out there understanding what are the challenges that are out there, a lot of times our knowledge starts being focused on us. What can I do? How can I get better? How can I make my widget better? How would my widget work better for me? How does my business work better for me? Our focus always, always, always needs to be on the customer. How can I solve this problem for for the customer? Do I know the problem well enough? Have I mastered understanding the problem? Do I know the customer experience in that type of problem? Make sure that your knowledge and your learning effort is focused on understanding where the customer is coming from. Just because I can build this amazing website that's the type of thing I want, is it the experience that my customer is going to want? Make sure that your knowledge is focused around that. I'm glad someone else doesn't like the 3 and 5 year plans, because I don't know what's going to happen 3 months from now. So I can have a goal, I can have a hope, but that's where I like the vision. What's your grand vision of where it's going to be? It doesn't require a plan yet, but it stays out there and we can keep tweaking and moving, knowing that that's ultimately our destination. Okay. Knowledge as a barrier. Man, one of the things that happens is we oftentimes can get stuck, that we know so much that we can't change our mind, that we can't see the truth and the point right in front of us. We'll have customers begging us for, yeah, I know you thought this was designed for the power gamer and the person who really loves having that type of experience, but I don't do either of those things, but it'd be amazing for me just watching movies at home. And I'm just stuck, and I'm stuck. I'm like, no. My product is meant for like power gamers doing, 12 hours a day on the esports teams. Our own knowledge can get in the way because we're not willing to admit that we're wrong, or that we need to change, or that there's something that we can learn. So be careful when you're picking up all this knowledge that you're like, this is the way it has to be, and this is the only way it can be. There are so many amazing people out there. And if you stick with those aha moments of curiosity and understand, how did they get good? How did they do so well? Don't minimize them to raise yourself up, but that can be a challenge. Last piece I want to dig into here is learning redefined. Okay, informal ways of learning. If you're in business, you need to have 4 or 5 other business owners that you talk to on a regular basis. You can learn from them, not because they've set up the 8-step program in order to become an amazing sales marketer, but because they've been through a business too, or they're going through a business too. And you can learn from other people. You can learn by asking questions. The informal process of learning, I believe, is ultimately more powerful in the long run. Formal learning gives us systems, ways of thinking, and approaches that give us a foundation to get started on. Informal learning are all the pieces on how you put all that together, right? Formal learning may say, set up a great SEO when you do your website. Informal learning is understanding from all the other people who you think are being successful in that category, how did you do it? Who did you talk to? What did you read? Where did you learn? Embrace that informal learning, and it usually comes from other people. It comes from being willing to observe, it comes from being quiet, it comes from choosing to learn. So, would love to, before we hop onto that slide, would love to see if we have any questions or any comments that have come up that we want to highlight.
Tasha just commented, the curiosity connection is all I needed to hear. This feels like a kismet experience. That's great to hear from you, Tasha.
Yeah, I mean, I'm all about simplicity. One of the places I focus on is, if you can take away that one thing, then have that be enough. Because ultimately, we're such creatures of habit. There's a way to use that to your advantage when you interact with your customers, but knowing that we are creatures of habit, we don't like change. We can tell ourselves I like change. Historically, we just don't like change. We do things the same way. Probably if we learned a little bit about you after a week, 95% of the time we could find out where you are, because we always go to the same coffee shop at the same store at the same time. You go to work at the same way. So keep it simple. Find one item that you can pull away. So if igniting your curiosity is the main piece that I can either encourage or remind all of you in terms of what to do on mindset going forward, that would absolutely be an amazing gift.
Marianne, I saw that you came off of mute. Did you have any questions for Brent? Okay, just wanted to make sure.
Just didn't want to leave anyone out. That's fair enough. Well, we only have a couple of minutes left here, so I want to respect everyone's time. Thank you for taking the time to interact with me here. I'm going to drop in the chat these items that are here, but you can receive your free core mindset handbook. Just go to bit.ly/mindsetcore, and you can sign up, and then you'll receive the link to be able to download that handbook. It's got a lot of additional information, points to ponder, action items, questions I want you to answer. If you want to go ahead and review what we picked up here in today and you want to set up a meeting with me to do that, please do that, bit.ly/coach with Brent, or I encourage everyone to connect with me on LinkedIn. There's a question, can the presentation be emailed out? Andy, I don't know what your policy is on some of those. I don't have access to everyone's email.
That's a great question. And yes, this session is being recorded. It will actually be aired on our YouTube page, which I will go ahead and put a link in the comments for. There is our YouTube page. So yeah, that will house this event on there, as well as all of our other events that we have put out since about the end of March of 2020. So in addition to that, though, another thing I wanted to highlight, I know Brent at the beginning touched on 8 items, and he only discussed 4 today. So Brent will actually be back at DreamBank a week from today to share the 4 advanced concepts for the entrepreneurial mindset. And I am going ahead and getting that registration link ready for you all. Highly encourage you to check that out. It'll be in a similar format, so about 45 minutes or so, with ample time for Q&A and time to interact with Brent, but there is that link as well.
Awesome. And we have, I'm open. We have a couple minutes if anyone has any final questions. Otherwise, like I said, do reach out, connect with me. You've got my email. It's brent@halfwassen.com. Feel free to reach out to me. And I'm going to put out a challenge to everyone, because we need challenges. We have 7 days until part 2 of the event. I would love for everyone to be able to download that workbook and to start going through it, and email me directly or set up time with me directly and figure out what you learn there. If I can unlock 1 or 2 pieces for you on mindset, it would be my absolute privilege. Absolutely. I work one-on-one with people.
Perfect. Just wanted to make sure you saw that. Brent, as we wrap up here and people get in their last minute questions, we are a community that is built of fellow fearless dreamers, and we always like to ask our speakers, what's one piece of advice you have for someone who is actively pursuing a dream right now?
Oh, if you're actively pursuing a dream, surround yourself with other people who are going to support you in building it. It goes back to that influence piece we talked about with making a choice. Choose to surround yourself with people to support your dream, because plenty of people say it isn't going to happen, it's unrealistic, that'll never, who wants to do that? Leave those people behind and focus with those that'll support you, because they're out there and it'll make you amazing and powerful.
Wonderful advice, Brent. Thank you so much for this presentation today. Thank you all for joining us. We hope to see you all next week. We will go ahead and cap it there and see you all next time, though. Go ahead and take care.